Gary Glass, president of the American Homebrewers Association, joins me this week to discuss the industry and the upcoming virtual Homebrewcon. This is BeerSmith Podcast number 216. This is BeerSmith Podcast number 216, and it's early June 2020. Gary Glass joins me to discuss the upcoming online Homebrewcon, as well as the state of craft and homebrewing. Thank you to this week's sponsors, Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine. Every issue of Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine is packed with articles for homebrewers and beer lovers. They're currently offering 20% off their all-access subscription pass, with access to videos, brewing courses, exclusive articles, and the Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine. Go to beerandbrewing.com/beersmith to get your all-access pass today. Again, that's beerandbrewing.com/beersmith. And also the Brew Commander, the new complete brewhouse controller from Blickman Engineering. It's available in electric and gas propane models. The patent-pending Brew Commander is a high-quality brewhouse controller with exact precision and the ultimate in flexibility. Whether integrated or freestanding, the Brew Commander offers automated step mashing, boil timers, and amazing advanced settings. Whatever your setup, the Brew Commander offers precision temperature control with perfect repeatability. Command your brew day with the new Brew Commander. To order yours today, go to blickmanengineering.com for more information. Again, that's blickmanengineering.com. And finally, I urge you to give BeerSmith 3 brewing software a try. BeerSmith 3 adds mead, wine, and cider recipe support to the great BeerSmith platform, along with new integrated water profile and mash pH tools. Dozens of new features, including cloud folders, updated databases, support for fruit juice and honey, as well as new Whirlpool hop options. Download your free 21-day trial today from beersmith.com and give it a try. And now let's jump into this week's episode. Today on the show, I welcome back Gary Glass, director of the American Homebrewers Association. Gary heads up the 40,000-plus member Homebrewers Association here in America and is also active in the parent Brewers Association. He joins us to talk about craft and homebrewing today. And of course, the Homebrewcon coming up. How are you, Gary?
I'm doing great. How are you, Brad?
I am well. How are things up there in Colorado today?
Today it is beautiful. We're expecting highs in the 80s and it's sunny out. So I'll probably have to take a break at some point and actually get outside.
So you've been pretty busy, though, I understand. And I wanted to talk about a variety of topics today, but I think why don't we start with the craft beer industry? Obviously, the AHA is a subsidiary of the Brewers Association, and after the whole pandemic, a lot of the craft brewing, places have been hit very hard, right?
Yeah. It's been a really tough year with the COVID-19 outbreak. We did a poll of breweries earlier in the year, after things started shutting down, and 95% of the breweries responding said that they expected to be down this year, and 61% were anticipating layoffs. When you think about the brewery landscape in the United States today, we've got over 8,000 breweries, but the median production of those breweries is less than 500 barrels.
Wow.
So that means most of these breweries are really small taproom breweries, and they're dependent on a business model where people come into the brewery and drink their beer at their bar. And when they have to shut down, that business model doesn't work. So a lot of these breweries have shifted to doing curbside pickup and that kind of thing. So that pivot and some breweries are actually doing delivery in their local areas. So there's a lot of adaptation going on, and hopefully most of these breweries will be able to survive. But it's tough out there for businesses that are based on people coming into their establishments.
And I know a lot of these smaller breweries are small, independent, family owned, right?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, they don't have access to big funding and stocks and all this other stuff, right?
Right. And most of them are running on a shoestring budget and family run businesses.
So what are some of the things we can do to try and help out some of the craft breweries and keep them going during the pandemic?
There's a few things, if your local brewery is doing curbside pickup, or if you can call in advance and pick up some beer, that certainly is going to help them out. Another great thing that we can do to help support our small breweries is to buy gift cards. And it's essentially a no interest loan. you'll use that gift card to buy a beer later when you can go back into the tap room. But that gives them some cash in the meantime to help sustain their businesses. And then as homebrewers, something that I've done is I've got a local taproom brewery that they don't package any beer, and so their business is way down. So they had a lot of kegs sitting around because they'd have no place to sell their kegs to. So we picked up a couple of kegs from them. I've got a tap system, yeah. So it's not a problem for me. I've been homebrewing more than I ever have, so I didn't need the beer, but I felt like it was something that I could do to help support their business.
Excellent. And of course, the other big event you had to cancel was Craft Brewers Conference was canceled right at the end of March, right?
Right. Yeah,
right at the last minute, really.
Yes. Yeah. We were going to be in San Antonio for the Craft Brewers Conference. And for the Brewers Association, that is our biggest revenue generator. And not only that, this was the year we were doing our World Beer Cup competition. So we not only had to cancel Craft Brewers Conference, but also the World Beer Cup. And we've canceled another Brewers Association event called Savor that takes place in Washington, D.C. every year. It's a beer and food event. And then the AHA events that we've had to cancel. It's been financially devastating for us. We ended up having to cut 23% of the Brewers Association staff, and that included 2 of the full-time AHA staff. So it's been rough.
So the Brewers Association is also kind of on the ropes here, right? And I mean, you guys aren't eligible for aid either, I guess, because of your status.
Right. Whereas a 501c6 not-for-profit, currently we do not get any of the financial benefits of the legislation that's been passed so far. But thankfully our board of directors has been had the foresight to build up our reserves, so we do have a fair amount of financial reserves that we can draw upon. But with that, the drop in revenue that we've experienced, we just couldn't maintain the employment level that we had. So it was really very difficult to have to lose so many of our colleagues.
So what are some of the things we can do to support the BA and of course the AHA? I mean, on the good news side, I guess homebrewing's up, right? People are at home, so they are brewing more.
Yeah, for sure. On the BA side, the things that we can do to support are really to support the small independent breweries in your area, because that's where our source of revenue is currently, is from those breweries' membership. So as long as they're able to stay in business and they have the funds to maintain their membership, then that supports the BA as well. On the AHA side, of course, you can be a member of the American Homebrewers Association. That significantly helps us out, and is our main source of revenue right now. We do have gift card memberships, so you could always gift a membership to somebody. And then also we'll talk about our Homebrewcon online in a moment here, but registering for Homebrewcon online is another great way that you can help support our organization.
And I've seen a significant uptick in web traffic. I think you probably have too, which is kind of interesting. So I think people are taking a new interest in homebrewing after many years of decline. Really, homebrewing has been declining really since 2013, and now we're starting to see it turn around.
Yeah, the declines our membership has been fairly stable. So I'm not sure that the number of homebrewers has declined all that much, but the frequency with which people are brewing and the volumes they're brewing in has gone down. And so homebrew retailers have really been hit hard over the last few years. But there is definitely an increase in interest that we've seen since the people went to Savor at Home. And we've seen increased media attention. So I've probably done more media interviews in the last 2 months than I did in all of last year. In fact, the media hits that we've gotten have had more impressions just in the last month than we had in all of 2019. So there's definitely interest in homebrewing that's growing. And if you look at Google searches for things like how to make beer or how to brew, those have also seen spikes. I know a lot of the online retailers are seeing dramatic increases in business. At the brick and mortar level, it's a more of a mixed bag. Most of the shops are not allowing customers into their stores anymore, and so that's going to impact their business. But also most of the homebrew shops are now doing curbside pickup. So I definitely recommend for homebrewers out there, like make sure you're supporting that local homebrew shop, because if you want them to be around, it's a tough business model for them to be under with people not coming into their stores anymore. So I know I've been brewing a lot more frequently, and hopefully most homebrewers out there are brewing more frequently. I mean, every day I'm thankful that I am a homebrewer, because I'm stuck at home, but I've got something fun to do that I already had planned. So it's really it hasn't been too tough for me. I've been able to keep myself entertained with my brewing. I think that a lot of the stores are seeing that. They're seeing increased business from their existing customers. They're seeing a pickup from homebrewers who may have ceased brewing, and also seeing new customers come in. Well, not come into their store, but purchasing from them.
Yeah, I certainly think the curbside pickup's been a great option. They have it here. I know several local stores have it here. And when I talk to my friends that are selling equipment as well online, they're doing very well right now. So that's all good news for homebrewing, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And I really hope that what we see come out of this is a renewed interest in homebrewing from both those former homebrewers and from new homebrewers, and hopefully the existing homebrewers who've started brewing more frequently keep it up, because that would be really great for the stores. It would certainly be great for the American Homebrewers Association. So I'm very hopeful that this will be a sustained growth in homebrewing, and the interest in the hobby continues to grow over the next year or two.
I'd certainly like to see that. That'd be great. We've had, like I said, it's been many years of decline, and some of the homebrew shops have been really hurt over the years. So I'm hoping this is a long-term trend.
I really hope so, yes. And to your point, we have seen about 200 shops go out of business in the last 5 years or so. So that it's definitely impacted those stores. I really hope to see like this renewed interest in the hobby continue to grow, and hopefully those stores will be thriving in the years to come.
And I think, do you think this is going to drive more people online? Because certainly we're seeing that with Amazon and Walmart and all these other places.
I think that's a good possibility. Certainly in my conversations with the major online stores, they're seeing so much business that they can't keep up, and they're having to kind of throttle things back just to keep up. On their side, the employment is a big issue. If they've lost staff, people being concerned about coming into the business, it's really hard to replace that staff right now. So those are kind of the issues on the online front. And I mean, there's just been a general trend towards moving to online retail. So if we as a community of homebrewers really want to maintain that local homebrew supply shop, it's imperative on us to be buying from our local stores when we can.
Now, another trend I've seen, Gary, is a lot of renewed interest from the homebrew clubs. I personally have been doing several presentations a week to homebrew clubs, where, as I used to do, maybe one or two a month.
Yeah, we as the AHA staff have been doing the same thing. We have through the Brewers Association, we have our own WebEx platform that we use, and so we've actually hosted I think we're probably around 60 homebrew club meetings in the last month and a half.
Yeah.
For just between the AHA staff. So that's been great, and like really awesome social outlet for us.
Yeah, I was talking with a club.
Stuck at home.
I was talking with a club the other day, and they mentioned that they actually have more people dialing into the club meetings than they do attending the in-person club meetings typically, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, well, I as much as I do enjoy the online meetings, and I'll continue to do that, I am really looking forward to getting back together with my fellow homebrewers in person. Yeah,
I agree. Well, I mean, talking about that, obviously a big disappointment. Just a week or two ago, you had to cancel the Nashville Homebrewcon, which I think all of us were very much looking forward to. It was going to be at Opryland, I think, right?
Right. It was going to be at the Gaylord Opryland in Nashville. A really great venue. I was so excited about it, and Nashville is such a great city, and we'd never been there before, so I was very much looking forward to it. Extremely disappointing that we were having to cancel that, but also just did not want to be in a position where we were potentially putting our members, our speakers, our staff at risk. So it just wasn't worth it. So I'm just really grateful that this is happening at a time when we do have other options. And so for us to be able to quickly turn that around and put it into an online format is really awesome. So super excited that we've got Homebrewcon online. We won't be losing the education that Homebrewcon provides every year, and probably opening up to a wider audience than could have been present in Nashville.
And of course, I wore my AHA shirt today, so I could talk about it. But you do have an ambitious online event planned instead, right? So you've got,
right.
I think, in the same time period, you're going to have a series of online events. And so, can you start talking about maybe some of those?
Sure. So yeah, we'll be taking place the same dates as we had planned for Nashville. So that's June 18th through the 20th. We don't have as many speakers, but we have 19 educational sessions, and then our keynote address by Bailey Spalding, who is the homebrewer who founded Jackalope Brewing Company in Nashville. So really great that we were able to keep Bailey on as our keynote speaker. The speaker lineup is stellar. I mean, it includes you, Brad. So, I'm very excited
doing a panel with John Palmer and Jamil, I think, right?
Right. Yeah. Talk about some all-stars right there. But we've got John Mallett from Bell's, Annie Johnson, former Homebrewer of the Year, Ron Pattinson from the UK, Stan Hieronymus talking on hops. We've got Sandor Katz, who's going to be talking about fermented foods. There's a really stellar lineup, and actually being online has opened up a couple of opportunities that we didn't have in Nashville. At the Brewers Association, we have an executive chef, Chef Adam Dooley, is an extremely accomplished chef. He, as a result of moving this online, set up a beer and food session with Vinny and Natalie Trelurzo from Russian River, where he's going to be. We'll have a couple of Russian River beers. We'll provide homebrew recipes for those beers, and then Chef Adam's going to create 4 different dishes to pair with those beers, and then you'll be able to go live into Chef Adam's kitchen. So that's something we definitely couldn't do in person. So I'm excited about that. And then we also were able to add on Lars Garshol, who's the author of Historical Brewing Techniques. He is from Norway, and will be presenting on kind of Scandinavian farmhouse brewing. He wasn't going to be able to be present in Nashville, but because we're doing it online, he will be one of our speakers for Homebrewcon Online.
Awesome. So it sounds like you got some great speakers lined up, and I assume, and as I understand it, you pay a fee up front to register for the online event, and then you get access to pretty much everything, right?
Right. So for a $99 fee, you get all the educational content, but we also have some of the social aspects of Homebrewcon built in as well, as well as as you know, we always have an expo with vendors of various products for homebrewers at Homebrewcon. So this year we're doing that virtually, and we have a virtual expo, and then we're also offering some of those exhibitors an opportunity to give presentations on some of their products. So you'll still get that kind of experience, even though you're experiencing from your home.
So tell us some more about the virtual expo. How is that going to work? Because normally I'd set up a booth and people would come to the booth and we chat.
Right. So we'll have exhibitors who set up for 20-minute time slots, and that gives them a chance to interact with the registered attendees of Homebrewcon over that time frame. So you'll still have that interaction. Obviously, it's going to be a digital interaction instead of an in-person interaction, but still that opportunity to show off your wares and answer questions from attendees. And then we also have some of the social aspects of Homebrewcon built in as well. So
yeah, you mentioned I think there's going to be some meetups and for different groups, right?
Right. So at Homebrewcon, we usually have meetups scheduled for. We do a mead makers meetup. We've got the Milk the Funk group that does
Sour
focused on
beers,
sour
yeah.
beers and
Facebook
wild
group
ales,
actually.
and there's a female homebrewer home meetup. As well as a meetup for online forum members, so people who are on the AHA forum or Reddit or the Homebrew Talk, those kinds of things. They can actually get together via these meetups. So that's a part of what we would normally be doing at HomebrewCon, which we are still able to provide via HomebrewCon online. And then we also have some happy hours that are scheduled. Where
I saw that. Yeah,
we'll bring in some homebrew celebrities. It'll be a chance for attendees to interact with one another and some of those folks, and I'll be in there. So I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, the only caveat is that it is a bring your own homebrew event, so you got to provide your own beer, but otherwise, you'll still be able to interact with your fellow attendees of the conference.
And then I saw you had some kind of annual awards program and prize drawing set up, but I believe wasn't the actual competition canceled? I'm trying to remember. Right.
Yeah. So we did have to cancel a national homebrew competition this year, but we do still have the AHA Governing Committee's Recognition Award, the Radagast Club of the Year Award, and the Homebrew Shop of the Year Award that we'll be giving out at the end of the conference. And as part of the award ceremony, we're going to do a prize drawing, and where everybody who is registered for the conference is going to be entered into the drawing. And we've got some of the sponsors will be providing prize packages that we'll be doing a drawing for. And so anybody who's registered will have an opportunity to win fabulous prizes during the award ceremony.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. As we've been saying, like we're kind of stuck at home these days, and but this is an opportunity for us to be interacting with the broader homebrewing community, and so I'm really excited about it. And so far registration has been going well, and would love to see as many members as are interested taking us up on this opportunity for a great selection of online education and homebrewing camaraderie.
So I'm looking at the website here. We've got it's June 18th to 20th, 2020. I assume can people from overseas register? That's another question, because normally they might not be able to come.
Absolutely, it doesn't matter where you are as long as you've got an internet connection and can provide your own beverages. That's all that's really necessary. So,
is there any software requirement? What kind of software are you using to run the whole thing?
We're going to be using Crowdcast, which is all browser based. So you do not need any special.
So I don't need to install a special
client
or anything. That's great.
Right. The meetups we will be doing via WebEx, so those people who are signing up will provide instructions for how that works. But that can also be done just on a browser as well.
And again, I'm looking at the website here. It's $99. Looks like for the for existing members, or $132 if you want to become a member of the AHA, which certainly a good idea at this point.
Right, and yeah, that's actually a discounted rate on the AHA membership there. So it's a great way to get something. While also supporting the American Home Brewers Association.
So where can people find out? What's the website they go to?
The website is homebrewcon.org. And for AHA membership, if you're more interested in AHA membership, homebrewersassociation.org is our website. But the conference, homebrewcon.org.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Gary. Is there anything else you wanted to, maybe some closing thoughts on where we're going, how this whole thing's going to end up?
Well, I'm really optimistic about how things are gonna play out here. Obviously, I think, it's a drag being stuck at home, and that's kind of what we have to do for the time being. But homebrewing is something that we do from home, and so it's a great opportunity to be getting out the brew kettle and brewing a little bit more and doing some experimentation. So I've been having fun with it, and I hope the other homebrewers out there are. And just be supporting your local homebrew shop, support your local homebrew club, and hopefully you're supporting the American Homebrewers Association as well.
So what have you been brewing, Gary?
Well, I've got a Saison that was the beer that I most recently tapped. I've got an Irish Stout that I brewed with the Kvike yeast.
How did that turn out?
It was an experiment. So I wanted to see if I could brew a beer and serve it a week later, and I did. So the beer fermented at 98 degrees. It was done in less than 2 days. Crash cooled it, kegged it, forced carbonated, shook it up, and I was actually drinking it a week after I brewed it. So that was a fun project.
Irish Stout, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, so it was a session beer, so it wasn't going to take very long to brew. Also did the what I called a Pangea approximate, the Big Brew recipe. So
what is that?
It was a recipe that was designed for the Homebrewcon commemorative beer. So it was something that Bailey Spalding at Jackalope Brewing Company put together using. It's an IPA that used New Zealand hops and the Lulleman Kvike Voss yeast strain. So going from north to south, it was the recipe was called Pangea Proxima Polar IPA. Pangea Proxima is a landmass that will be in like 300 million years or something like that when all the continents come back together. And so the beer utilizes ingredients from north to south, I guess. It's going from Scandinavia down to New Zealand and using European and American continental hops.
So what does it actually taste like when you're done?
I'm sorry, malts. I just kegged that beer. I haven't. It hasn't carbonated yet, so I'm not quite sure. And I did alter the hops based on what I had locally available. So it's not my version. Probably won't be exactly what Jackalope's version will taste like. But the Big Brew event was our most popular in terms of the number of people actually brewing beer this year, which I would attribute to the whole coronavirus thing. Lots of people at home rather than getting together at Big Brew sites around the world like we normally see. Everybody was doing it at home. But we had I think over almost 5,000 people around the world participating. And
actually, I was speaking to a group in South Africa, which was interesting because they have actually largely cut off the sale of alcohol in South Africa during the pandemic, and so they had huge interest in brewing, in homebrew, a huge surge in homebrewing there, as you might imagine.
Yeah, based on my Google alerts, it would seem that in South Africa, brewing with pineapples seems to be extraordinarily popular.
Yeah, I think in many cases they're using whatever native ingredients they can find to ferment. So it's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's you do what you have to do. I think, thankfully, here in the United States, we've already been through that prohibition thing, and I don't think our politicians are going to think that was a good idea. So we are not in that situation here.
No, just I wish we had more access to craft beer, but obviously, hopefully that'll open up soon.
Yeah, I do hope so, and hopefully those breweries will be able to make it through this.
So, Gary, tell me a little more about your experience with the Kvike yeast. I think it's become quite popular here.
Yeah. So, my first attempt using it, I brewed the base style was a Belgian blonde. So basically the Belgian blonde malt and hops, and then I used the Kvike yeast, and I pitched the yeast at 88 degrees, and that's totally not normal for fermentation. So it's
from what I understand, you go up to 100, right?
That. Right. Yeah. I mean, their recommendations on I'm using the Lulleman Voss strain. and their recommendations are between 94 and 104. So even that just seemed like, yeah, I don't know about that. So I pitched it at 88,
crazy.
and I was figuring it was going to ramp up from there. But that's just so much higher than ambient temperature that what I experienced was that the temperature actually dropped from there. It got off to a raging start. Like every time I've used that yeast, it's bubbling within like an hour or two. And I say that, and it's actually bubbling in less than an hour. And I just can't really comprehend that.
There's no lag phase, whatever. Huh?
There isn't. It just starts going right away. But so that Belgian blonde, because the temperature dropped down to ambient so quickly, it was sitting at 67 degrees, and it continued to ferment just very slowly. And so that beer took 3 weeks to ferment.
Now that's very unusual, isn't it, for the Quebec yeast? It typically ferments fairly quickly, right?
Right, and very interesting ester profile on that. It wasn't Belgian, but you wouldn't expect it to be Belgian because it's Norwegian.
Did it shouldn't have a lot of esters, I would think, right?
Well, that beer actually did have a lot of esters. It had
that's interesting.
Pretty prominent peach ester, maybe a little bit of lemon and some berry in there. It was really pleasant. In fact, my wife loved that beer. And I really thought it was very enjoyable. It just wasn't a Belgian, and it wasn't that clean profile that you expect from what I've heard about the Kvike yeast. So I just didn't have any temperature control on my fermenter with that particular fermentation. I was just assuming that because it was being pitched so warm and that it would probably ramp up from there, that it would be able to maintain that temperature, but it wasn't able to maintain the temperature.
Now, how about your second beer that you made with the Quebec yeast?
Right. So I made an Irish stout with the Kvike yeast the second time around, and by that point I had gotten a heater belt for the fermenter I was using, and I wrapped some insulation around it. I pitched that one at 98, and I had my temperature controller set at 98. And that one fermented out in less than 2 days. It was done. And that one had an extremely neutral ester profile, just a little bit of an herbal lemon character to it. So it's kind of reminiscent of lemon balm, if you're familiar.
How do you pick that up in an Irish stout, though?
Right. Yeah. So I mean, it being an Irish stout, it may be covering up some of the other esters in there, but there is just a little bit of a citric character to it that I wouldn't expect in a usual Irish stout. So I would attribute that to the yeast, but it is, again, very neutral. But with that beer, having fermented out in less than 2 days, I crash cooled it, was able to force carbonate it, and so I was going from grain to glass in a week.
That's pretty impressive.
It's really pretty extraordinary, and the beer was, like I said, there's a small ester profile there, but not very prominent. So I mean, I think that's a really significant change, and for homebrewers to be able to brew in a week is pretty extraordinary. But on the commercial side, if you're able to clear your tanks in such a short time frame, that's a game changer there. The other thing that I noticed with using this yeast is that because I'm only dropping the temperature down to I dropped it down to 104, which was the top end of the scale for pitching that yeast, knowing that by the time I actually got it into the fermenter, it would drop a little bit more. And the amount of water I used for chilling was maybe a quarter of what I would normally use to get it down to like 68 or so, where I would normally be pitching an ale. So that's another thing that I hadn't anticipated being a benefit of using the Kvike yeast. So that's something that's also really cool. Like you're reducing your I guess your
water
environmental footprint. Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. So I'm going to ask a question everybody wants to know. As the head of the American Homebrewers Association, what kind of equipment do you brew on?
We just finished our basement a couple of years ago. My wife also is in the beer industry, and so she's extremely supportive of my hobby. So we built a brew kitchen in our basement. I do have two different electric brew systems. One of them is the one I use the most is a 10-gallon high gravity system.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's called the Warthog, but all electric. I can dial in my mash temperatures. It's pretty awesome. And then I've got a 5-gallon.
Is that a 3-vessel system? I'm sorry to interrupt.
It's actually a 2-vessel system, so it doesn't take up that much space. There's
kind of similar to maybe a Brew Easy or something with a circulation, sort of a brew in a bag style system.
Yeah, it's essentially like brew in a bag, but with 2 vessels instead of 1. So there's no sparge. But it's very easy to do, and it cuts down on the amount of time from what I would be doing if I were doing a 3-vessel full-on sparge thing. Mm-hmm. So there's a little bit of sacrifice on the efficiency side, but not that much. So for me, it's worth it to have my brew days be a little less time. And then I've also got an Anvil Foundry 5-gallon. Well, it's the 10.5-gallon kettle, but it's basically for doing 5-gallon brew in a bag style batches. So I've been doing that.
And that's the all-in-one system, right?
Right. Uh-huh. And so I've got that. I've got a couple of conical fermenters. I've got a glycol chiller for the fermenters. And,
nice.
I'm finally to the point where I'm really dialed in, and I don't really need much more. I've got everything I could possibly want.
Well, Gary, thank you again for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. It's great to have you on, and had a little bit of fun talking about your homebrew. And of course, we're looking forward to Homebrewcon. I'll be speaking, and a lot of other people will be there too, hopefully. Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to joining you there. And thank you again for bringing me on. Always a pleasure to be with you, Brad. And again, my guest was Mr. Gary Glass, director of the American Homebrewers Association. Thank you again, Gary. Yeah. Thanks, Brad. A big thank you to Gary Glass for joining me this week. Thanks also to Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine. They're currently offering 20% off their all-access subscription pass with access to videos, brewing courses, exclusive articles, and the amazing Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine. Go to beerandbrewing.com/BeerSmith to get your all-access pass today. Again, that's beerandbrewing.com/BeerSmith. And also the Brew Commander, the new complete brewhouse controller from Blickman Engineering. The patent-pending Brew Commander is a digital brewhouse controller with high precision and the ultimate in flexibility. The Brew Commander offers automated step mashing, boil timers, and advanced brew day settings. Command your brew day with the new Brew Commander. To order yours today, go to blickmanengineering.com. Again, that's blickmanengineering.com. And BeerSmith 3 is available for both desktop and mobile platforms. BeerSmith 3 adds mead, wine, and cider recipe support, new whirlpool hop options, support for high-altitude brewing, and a whole lot more. Check out BeerSmith 3 and get your free 21-day trial today from beersmith.com. Thank you for listening. I hope you have a great brewing week.